The Galactic Council had long classified Earth as a Class 5 Deathworld, a planet so hostile that evolution there produced only the hardiest of species. When humans emerged from this crucible and joined interstellar society, most advanced civilizations regarded them with thinly veiled disdain. Humans were seen as primitive beings from a backwater planet, barely worth acknowledging in diplomatic circles. Captain Thomas Reed of the Earth Diplomatic Corps vessel Horizon had grown accustomed to the sideways glances and whispered comments. As the lone human representative at the annual Galactic Summit on Proxima Station, he maintained his composure despite the slights. The blue-skinned Altarians with their 6 limbs moved gracefully through the grand hall. The crystalline Meverans glimmered under the artificial lights. The gaseous Volari drifted in their containment suits. All regarded humans as curiosities, at best. Such primitive musculature, an Altarian diplomat named Krell remarked loudly enough for Thomas to hear. How they managed interstellar travel is beyond comprehension. Thomas smiled politely, having heard worse. The summit was scheduled to continue for another 3 days, and he would endure it as he always did, with quiet dignity that his superiors insisted would eventually earn humanity respect. That opportunity came sooner than expected. Alarms blared throughout Proxima Station the following morning. Thomas was jolted from sleep in his quarters by the station-wide announcement. Emergency protocol engaged. Containment breach in Sector 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. Thomas grabbed his regulation jacket and rushed into the corridor, where panicked delegates from a dozen worlds were streaming toward the evacuation pods. He spotted Krell, the Altarian diplomat, using all 6 limbs to push past smaller species. What escaped? Thomas called out to a passing station officer. Thanador beast, the officer replied, eyes wide with terror. From the Zoological Research Wing. It's already killed 3 security personnel. Thomas felt his blood run cold. Thanadors were apex predators from Epsilon Eridani, renowned for their speed, strength, and near-impenetrable hide that repelled most energy weapons. Only the most advanced militaries had weaponry capable of stopping them. The evacuation was chaotic. Thomas helped direct smaller delegates toward the pods when a blood-curdling scream echoed from a nearby junction. The crowd surged forward in panic, trampling those who couldn't keep pace. There are children back there. A Meveran's crystalline voice cut through the chaos. Thomas turned to see a group of young delegates, diplomatic offspring from various worlds, huddled in a recessed doorway, cut off from the evacuation route by the advancing creature. Through the crowd, he caught glimpses of scaled hide and glinting teeth as the Thanador stalked closer to the trapped younglings. Station security had established a perimeter, their energy weapons having minimal effect on the beast. The children would be reached too late. Thomas made his decision instantly. Rather than continuing toward safety, he sprinted against the flow of evacuees, toward the snarling predator. He heard gasps from the diplomatic corps as he passed. The human has lost his mind, Krell commented, watching from what he considered a safe distance. The Thanador was massive, 3 meters of rippling muscle, armored scales, and razor teeth. It had cornered the young delegates who huddled together trembling. The beast's 6 eyes tracked Thomas as he approached, adjusting its posture to face this new threat. Thomas slowed his advance, his mind racing through the xenobiology briefings he'd studied before the summit. Thanadors relied primarily on movement detection and had poor visibility for stationary objects. Their natural armor was nearly impervious except for... He stopped completely, becoming still as stone. The Thanador's head swiveled, momentarily, losing track of him. Thomas slowly reached down, removing his belt. The watching diplomats held their breath. The station security team had arrived with heavier weapons but hesitated, fearing for the children caught in potential crossfire. The Thanador roared, its attention returning to the easier prey, the children. As it lunged forward, Thomas exploded into motion. He dove beneath the creature's massive foreleg, rolling to position himself directly under its thorax where the scales were thinnest. With practiced precision, he looped his belt around the beast's throat, finding the pressure point where the carotid equivalent in Thanador physiology was located. The creature thrashed violently, Attempting to dislodge the human clinging to its underside, Thomas held firm, tightening the improvised garrote while avoiding the creature's claws. He applied pressure exactly where Thanador anatomy was most vulnerable, knowledge gleaned from mandatory survival training for all human diplomats. The watching. Diplomats were transfixed. A lone human without weapons or protection was engaging a predator that their most advanced security forces approached with extreme caution. After what seemed like an eternity but was merely minutes, the Thanador's movements grew sluggish. Thomas maintained his hold, careful not to kill the valuable research specimen but rendering it unconscious through oxygen deprivation to its brain. Finally, the massive creature collapsed, its respiratory system still functioning but its consciousness extinguished. Thomas extracted himself from beneath the sedated beast, breathing heavily. Security personnel rushed forward with restraints designed specifically for Thanador physiology. "Get the children to safety," Thomas directed, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. Later, as medical staff treated his minor injuries, Thomas found himself surrounded by the very diplomats who had dismissed him earlier. Krell, the Altarian, approached with what appeared to be newfound respect. "Your actions were unexpected," Krell admitted. "Our understanding of humans may require revision," Thomas shrugged. "On Earth, we learned to adapt to threats. It's how we survived our Deathworld." The incident became the talk of the summit. What the diplomats had failed to understand was that humans didn't merely survive Earth, they mastered it. Their evolution on a Deathworld hadn't made them primitive. It had made them resourceful, adaptable, and incredibly resilient. By the summit's conclusion, the human delegation found themselves receiving unprecedented attention. Proposals for joint ventures, cultural exchanges, and military cooperation flooded in from species that had previously ignored Earth entirely. As Thomas prepared the horizon for departure, he smiled at the irony. It took subduing one of the galaxy's most feared predators for them to recognize that humans weren't just survivors. They were apex predators in their own right, and the galaxy would never disregard them again.